stars had always whispered tales of power, conquest, and ancient civilizations. But nothing could prepare humanity for the moment when the Galactic Empire decided to make their mark on Earth. It began quietly, like a shadow stretching across the stars, unnoticed until it was far too late. One moment, humanity was oblivious to the vast cosmic forces moving through the galaxy. The next, a brutal invasion was upon them. And it all started with one innocent life, the life of a child. The Galactic Empire, cold and indifferent to human existence, had never shown any interest in Earth until that fateful day. The child, barely old enough to understand the world, was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't a military strike or an act of war that killed them. It was an act of cruelty, a reminder of the Empire's belief that human lives were expendable. They saw no value in them, no purpose, nothing that could challenge their rule. But they underestimated something vital about humanity, its resilience. The news of the child's death swept across Earth like a storm. The loss was devastating, but it wasn't just the death of one human that struck the world so deeply. It was the brutal message it sent. The Galactic Empire had sent a clear signal. Humans were nothing more than pawns in their grand scheme of universal domination. But the Empire had made a critical mistake. They had awakened something within humanity that had long been dormant, the will to fight back. And when humans fight back, they do so with everything they have. Across the globe, governments scrambled to understand the full scale of the threat. But in the shadows, a different kind of preparation was underway. Beneath the surface of Earth, in forgotten bunkers and hidden laboratories, an ancient project was about to be reignited. It was humanity's last hope, a secret military initiative designed to give them a fighting chance against enemies like the Galactic Empire. For years, the world had only whispered about them, the super soldiers, creatures of myth and legend among those who knew the truth. Created during a time when Earth had faced similar threats, they were soldiers engineered for one purpose: to fight, to survive, and to win. They were kept in cryosleep, their bodies preserved in stasis, waiting for the day they would be needed again. And now, that day had come. In the dead of night, hidden away in the deepest recesses of Earth's underground bunkers, the cryo chambers hummed to life. Systems powered on. Cold, lifeless figures began to stir, their bodies coming back to life after years, decades of suspended animation. The air crackled with the hum of ancient technology, a forgotten promise of survival now being fulfilled. Among the first to awaken was a commander, their minds sharp and clear despite the years of hibernation. Memories of the last war, the faces of fallen comrades, the very taste of victory, it all rushed back in an instant. They had been bred for combat, trained for war, and forged in the fires of humanity's darkest days. But even they knew, as their eyes adjusted to the harsh lighting of the lab, that this was different. This was not a war for resources or land. This was a war for survival, a war for the future of Earth itself. The commander looked around the room, seeing the faces of others beginning to stir from their slumber. Soldiers, each a living weapon, each one stronger, faster, and deadlier than any human could hope to be. The future of the human race rested on their shoulders now. "We've been asleep for too long," the commander muttered to themselves, their voice low but filled with resolve. "It's time to remind the galaxy what humanity is capable of." But the task ahead of them would not be easy. The Galactic Empire had proven to be a merciless, well-organized force, and its reach extended across the stars. The human resistance was small, scattered, and overwhelmed. The super soldiers may have been Earth's greatest hope, but even they could not stand alone. They would need to rally humanity's remaining forces and inspire a world still reeling from the shock of the invasion. It wasn't just the child's death that had sparked this new war. It was the realization that humanity had always been on the edge of extinction, always hanging by a thread. The death of the child was the final straw, the catalyst that forced humanity to confront the truth. They were not safe. They were not invincible, but they could fight, and they would. As the super soldiers began to assemble, the commander addressed them with quiet authority. "We've been given a second chance, and we will make the most of it. But this is only the beginning. The Galactic Empire will not rest until we are wiped out, but they will learn the hard way that humanity is not something to be underestimated." The super soldiers stood silently, their eyes burning with the same intensity they had carried into countless battles before. They were not just soldiers. They were the embodiment of humanity's defiance, proof that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans would not go quietly into the night. A plan was set into motion. Communications were made with the resistance. The remnants of Earth's military began to rally, and the Cryo soldiers prepared for what was certain to be an uphill battle. But as they readied themselves, a strange sense of calm settled over the commander. This wasn't just another fight for survival. This was a fight for the soul of humanity. A fight to prove that even the most powerful empire could not erase the will of a people determined to protect their future. As they prepared to make their move, the commander couldn't shake the haunting thought of the child's death. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a symbol. A symbol that, no matter how small, no matter how innocent, every life mattered. And that the price of freedom would always be high. They would take up this fight not just for themselves, but for every life lost in the war that had just begun. The Galactic Empire had made their mistake, but humanity was just getting started. In the distance, the stars burned with an indifferent, ancient light. But for the first time in centuries, the human race had a chance to stand tall once more. The battle lines were drawn, and the stage was set for humanity's greatest fight. Would Earth fall, or would the super soldiers and the survivors of humanity stand together and rise? As the countdown to war began, the future of Earth was uncertain. One thing was clear: the Galactic Empire had just made its greatest mistake. And they were about to learn that you never kill a child in a human's world, because we fight and we never forget. The underground facility buzzed with activity as the Cryo soldiers underwent their final preparations. Monitors blinked to life, displaying vital signs and the results of scans conducted as they awoke. The walls, once cold and silent, now hummed with the sounds of technology long dormant. The soldiers, slowly shaking off the disorientation of their slumber, stood in perfect synchrony, their minds sharp and focused despite the years spent in stasis. The commander, now fully alert, moved with deliberate purpose through the lab. The cold, sterile environment was far from the battlefields they had once known. But that was the past. This was the present, and the battle for Earth had just begun. The super soldiers had been designed for one thing: combat. They were humanity's most lethal weapon, their best chance of fighting back against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. But there was more to their creation than just military might. These soldiers weren't just warriors. They were humanity's last hope. Each one had been bred not only to fight, but to think, to lead, and to inspire those around them. The minds of these soldiers had been shaped over years of rigorous training, pushed to their limits in simulations and psychological conditioning. They had been taught to feel the weight of every decision, to understand the sacrifices required in battle, and to carry the knowledge of humanity's history and its potential future. The commanders stood before a table covered with maps and tactical data, their fingers tracing the lines of attack. The Galactic Empire had sent its message. Earth was nothing more than an obstacle in their path, and they had no intention of stopping until humanity was subjugated or destroyed. But the super soldiers had been trained for this moment, for the impossible. They had fought in wars against alien forces before, and they would do so again. But this time, they would be fighting for something greater than just a victory. They would be fighting for Earth's very survival. The first few days after their awakening were filled with briefings and intense discussions. The resistance groups around the globe were struggling to organize, torn apart by the initial shock of the invasion and the vast power of the Empire's fleet. The super soldiers knew they could not fight alone. They would need to unite the fractured remnants of Earth's military forces and rally the people to their cause. They would need every ally they could find if they hoped to stand a chance against the might of the Galactic Empire. And so, the commander began reaching out, sending encrypted messages to leaders across the globe. They spoke of unity, of a future where humanity stood free, unbowed and unbroken. But the message was clear. Time was running out. The Empire would not wait forever. Every day spent without action was another day they grew stronger, their influence spreading like a cancer across the stars. Meanwhile, the news of the Galactic Empire's attack on Earth spread like wildfire. The child's death, a symbol of the Empire's cold indifference, became a rallying cry for the people. Humanity, once divided by borders and ideologies, now found themselves bound by a singular cause. No longer would they hide in the shadows. No longer would they be powerless in the face of an enemy so vast and powerful. The super soldiers had awakened, and with them, the world's hope. But the commander couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. They couldn't put their finger on it, but there was a growing sense of unease, a nagging suspicion that the Empire's attack on Earth was only the beginning. The child's death had been the catalyst, but why had the Empire chosen this moment to strike? What had changed in the galaxy to make them focus their attention on Earth now? As the days passed, the resistance groups began to form, and scattered forces began to rally behind the super soldiers. But even with their arrival, Earth was still vastly unprepared. The Empire's fleets had already begun to encircle the planet, its forces cutting off any chance of escape. The Galactic Empire wasn't just looking to conquer Earth. They wanted to crush it, to send a message to anyone who dared oppose them. The super soldiers were humanity's last line of defense. They were the only force that stood a chance against the Empire's overwhelming power. But even they were not invincible. Their power came at a price. The years spent in cryosleep had taken a toll. The process was not perfect, and many of the soldiers were struggling to adjust to the sudden reawakening. Their bodies, while enhanced, were not immune to the ravages of time, and their minds, while sharp, were still processing the years of suspended animation. Despite these challenges, the soldiers pushed forward. They knew what was at stake. They understood the gravity of the situation better than anyone. They had fought before, and they would fight again. But the question lingered, would it be enough? The commander stared out at the stars, lost in thought. The sky, once so full of promise, now seemed a vast, empty expanse. The Galactic Empire's fleet loomed like a storm on the horizon, its ships already descending on Earth's atmosphere. The invasion had begun, and humanity's time to prepare was running out. Then, a sudden flash of light filled the room, a message from the front lines. The Resistance had intercepted a communication from the Empire's flagship, and the commander's heart raced as they read it. It was worse than they could have imagined. The Empire's fleet was not just here to conquer Earth. They had something far more sinister in mind. The message was clear. Earth was not their true target. It was just the beginning. The Galactic Empire had its sights set on a far greater prize, something far more valuable than Earth itself. They were after something hidden deep within the planet, something that had been protected for centuries. The super soldiers weren't just humanity's defense against the invasion, they were also the key to unlocking the secrets buried beneath Earth's surface. The commander's mind raced as they processed this new information. They had thought they were fighting for Earth's survival. But now they realized that they were fighting for something much bigger, something that could change the entire course of human history. But what was the Empire after? And why had they targeted Earth in the first place? As the super soldiers continued their training and the Resistance grew stronger, the commander couldn't shake the growing sense of danger. Something was lurking beneath the surface of this war, and they had to uncover it before it was too late. The stakes were higher than they had ever imagined, and with each passing moment, the mystery deepened. As the first battle lines were drawn, the commander knew one thing for certain. Humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. And the true enemy, the one that lurked in the shadows, had yet to reveal itself. The tension was palpable as Earth's forces assembled, ready to face their first major battle against the Galactic Empire. News of the Empire's true intentions had spread like wildfire, adding an eerie sense of urgency to every move. The Resistance fighters, once scattered and uncertain, now found themselves united under one cause, though the gravity of their situation weighed heavily on them. The super soldiers, humanity's greatest hope, stood among them, ready to lead the charge. But even with their unmatched strength, there was no guarantee that victory was within reach. The commander stood at the front, looking over the battlefield through the high-tech monitoring screens, scanning the skies for any signs of the approaching enemy fleet. Every pulse of activity from the Empire's forces sent a shiver down their spine. Earth's forces were no match for the overwhelming power of the Galactic Empire, but the super soldiers, with their enhanced bodies and battle-hardened minds, had a slim chance at turning the tide. The plan was risky, a gamble at best, but it was all they had. There was no time to waste, and the stakes could not be higher. As the first wave of ships from the Empire began to descend, Earth's forces moved into position, their hearts pounding with the weight of the moment. The commander's mind raced, calculating every possible outcome, trying to anticipate the enemy's next move. But no plan could account for the strange sensation creeping over them, the feeling that something was missing. They couldn't shake the thought that the Empire's fleet wasn't there to simply invade Earth, that there was something more sinister behind their actions. What was their true objective? What were they searching for beneath Earth's surface? The moment of truth was fast approaching. The first shots were fired, tearing through the atmosphere with deafening noise. The air crackled with energy, and Earth's forces were thrust into the chaos of war. Amidst the explosions and the chaotic screams of battle, the super soldiers pushed forward, their bodies moving with terrifying precision and speed. Every movement was calculated, designed to strike with deadly force. The sound of their boots hitting the ground echoed like a war drum, signaling humanity's fight for survival. The commander led from the front, every step filled with a sense of purpose. They had seen combat before, but nothing compared to the weight of this battle. It wasn't just Earth at stake. It was everything: the future of humanity, the survival of life as they knew it. The super soldiers fought fiercely, their enhanced abilities giving them an edge in the battlefield. But the Empire's forces were relentless, their ships and weapons far superior. With each clash, the realization grew clearer: even the super soldiers, with their incredible strength and training, couldn't win this alone. It was then that the true magnitude of the Empire's plan began to unravel. The battle was merely a distraction. The Empire had been sending small teams to infiltrate Earth's most secure locations, gathering data, scanning for something deep beneath the surface. The Resistance was losing precious ground, and with each passing minute, the urgency grew. The true war wasn't just about fighting the Empire. It was about keeping what lay hidden under Earth's crust from falling into their hands. With the knowledge that the enemy was now in pursuit of something far more valuable than the conquest of Earth, the commander's focus shifted. The super soldiers, though capable of extraordinary feats, had not been trained for this kind of hidden warfare. They were warriors, not archaeologists or engineers. Yet the Empire had made it clear they were willing to destroy the planet itself to get what they wanted. The Resistance's movements became more erratic as rumors spread about the Empire's secretive operation. People whispered of underground facilities, hidden deep within the Earth, and the mysterious technology that had been locked away for generations. It was clear now that the Empire's interest was not in conquering Earth, but in uncovering something buried beneath the surface, something powerful enough to shift the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The commander could no longer ignore the truth. Earth was being torn apart in more ways than one. The battle against the Empire was only a distraction, a false front to keep the people occupied while the Empire searched for the real prize. But what could they be looking for? What could be so important that the Empire was willing to risk everything: their fleet, their resources, and even their credibility just to claim it? As the battle raged on, and the Empire's forces began to push deeper into Earth's territories, the commander called an emergency meeting. The situation had become critical. The Resistance had to shift its focus from the battle above to the battle below. There was no longer any doubt Earth was hiding something valuable, and the Empire was determined to find it at any cost. The super soldiers, still recovering from their initial battles, were briefed on the new objective. The commander knew the soldiers would have to move fast. There were no guarantees of success, no assurances that they would survive the fight that awaited them, but they couldn't afford to hesitate. If they failed to find what the Empire was after, Earth would be lost, not just as a planet, but as a symbol of resistance to a greater cosmic tyranny. The mission was set. The super soldiers would infiltrate one of Earth's oldest underground bunkers, a facility buried deep in the heart of a forgotten mountain range. The facility had been abandoned for decades, a relic of an earlier era, but it was rumored to house something that the Empire had long sought. Whatever it was powerful enough to change the course of the war. As they prepared to move out, the commander couldn't shake the sense of dread that clung to them. They had been prepared for a war against the Empire, but not for this. This was no longer about human survival. It was about a fight for control of a power that could change everything. What was the Empire truly after? And what would happen if they succeeded? The time was now. The super soldiers, hardened by years of training and countless battles, moved with a sense of urgency and purpose. The countdown had begun, and the stakes had never been higher. The ultimate confrontation between Earth and the Galactic Empire was approaching, but the true battle, the one that would determine the future of humanity, was hidden deep beneath the surface of Earth itself. As the super soldiers descended into the forgotten mountain range, a palpable tension hung in the air. Their movements were swift, their minds focused on the mission ahead, but beneath that precision, a dark undercurrent of uncertainty ran through the commander's thoughts. The hidden facility had always been a mystery, shrouded in secrecy, its purpose unknown even to Earth's highest authorities. Yet, the Empire's obsession with it suggested that whatever lay within could tip the balance of the entire war. The soldiers moved in silence, their eyes scanning the environment for any sign of the Empire's presence. The deeper they ventured into the mountain, the more oppressive the silence became. It felt as though the very earth was holding its breath, waiting for something to awaken. The facility, a massive underground complex, loomed before them, its entryway concealed by decades of neglect and natural growth. It was a relic from a time long past, but its importance had never been clearer. Just as they prepared to enter, a sudden vibration shook the ground beneath their feet. The tremor was minor, but unmistakable. Something was happening, something powerful. The soldiers immediately activated their equipment, scanning the area for any signs of intrusion or danger. The commander signaled for the group to hold their position, their senses heightened. It was too quiet, almost too perfect. The Empire wasn't far behind. They had to move quickly. As they entered the facility, the walls were covered in ancient symbols, unfamiliar technology, and markings that suggested a civilization long lost. The structure had been designed with security in mind, its halls lined with traps and defensive systems that had long since failed or decayed. Still, there was an undeniable sense that something greater had once thrived here, something Earth had forgotten, and perhaps something the Empire was desperately searching for. Then came the second twist that would alter the course of their mission. The group had ventured deep into the facility when they stumbled upon a central chamber, its massive doors now partially opened, revealing a vast array of machinery machines that hummed with power, unlike anything seen before. The very air seemed to crackle with energy as the commander stepped forward, their heart racing with the realization of what lay within. This was it. This was what the Empire wanted. But as they examined the room, it became apparent that the technology wasn't just old, it was ancient and far more advanced than anything the Empire could have anticipated. The chamber was built around a core, a mysterious energy source that pulsed with an otherworldly force. This was not just some relic from Earth's past. It was the key to an unimaginable power, one that could obliterate entire fleets with a single command. Before the commander could act, the soldiers froze in place, their weapons at the ready. Something, or rather, someone was standing in the shadows. The figure, barely visible in the dim light, slowly stepped forward, revealing a face that was simultaneously familiar and foreign. It was a human face, but not one they recognized. The air in the room seemed to grow colder as the figure spoke, their voice soft but laden with a chilling sense of authority. "We were waiting for you." The words hit the commander like a physical blow. Who was this person, and how did they know what was at stake? The soldiers, caught off guard, instinctively took a step back. The figure moved closer, their presence commanding the room. The commander's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary human, not by any measure. There was something unnerving about the way the figure stood, an eerie calmness that betrayed an unsettling knowledge of the situation. "I'm afraid you're too late," the figure continued. The Empire has already found the key. They've unlocked its power. The realization hit like a thunderclap. The Empire had anticipated the super soldiers' move. They had known all along about this hidden facility, and now it seemed they had already succeeded in accessing its greatest secret. The chamber hummed louder, the core pulsating with energy, as the mysterious figure stepped forward, revealing their true identity. The commander's blood ran cold. The figure was not merely a human, they were one of the first super soldiers, a predecessor from a long-forgotten generation. They had been part of a failed project, one that had attempted to harness this very power centuries ago. But this soldier, this being, was different. The truth hit them in a flash. The soldier's entire existence had been part of a long game, a strategy that had begun before their awakening. They were not merely humanity's last hope, they were pieces in a much larger puzzle. The super soldiers had been awakened not only to fight the Empire, but to reclaim something that had been lost to humanity long ago. This mysterious figure had been part of the original experiment, and their knowledge of the facility, the core, and the technology was unlike anything the commander could comprehend. The mystery deepened. The Empire had been searching for this power for centuries, and now it seemed that this figure was more than just an obstacle in their path. They were the key to everything, and with them, Earth's future hung in the balance. The commander's mind raced. Had they been played all along? Were they really fighting for humanity's future? Or were they part of a grand design they had no control over? And what was this power the Empire was so intent on obtaining? The stakes had been raised to a level no one had anticipated, and the battlefield had shifted. It wasn't just Earth's survival that was at risk anymore. It was the very fabric of human existence itself. As the super soldiers readied themselves for whatever would come next, the ground beneath them trembled again, this time with greater force. The sound of approaching ships echoed in the distance. The Empire was closing in, and time was running out. With the mysterious figures standing in their way, the final confrontation between Earth and the Galactic Empire seemed inevitable, but the true nature of that confrontation had just been revealed. It wasn't just a fight for Earth. It was a fight for humanity's very soul. The super soldiers had one chance to stop the Empire from unlocking the power beneath their feet. But with the clock ticking down and the stakes higher than ever, the true battle was just beginning. The tension in the air was electric, as if the entire underground facility was holding its breath. The hum of the core resonated like a heartbeat, each pulse vibrating in the bones of everyone in the room. The mysterious figure, the first super soldier, stood before them with an eerie calmness, their eyes locked on the commander. The weight of their presence filled the room, making it clear that this was no mere encounter, it was a confrontation of fate itself. "Do you truly believe you can stop the Empire?" the figure said, their voice cutting through the thick silence. "You think the super soldiers will save you? No. You were never meant to save humanity. You were meant to keep it in line." The words hit like a punch to the gut. The commander's mind reeled. Could it be true? Had the super soldier program been designed for something darker than they had ever imagined? For a moment, everything seemed to unravel. The idealism of the fight, the sense of righteousness that had fueled them, began to crack. This wasn't just a war to save Earth. It was a battle for control, for power over humanity's future. The Empire had always known this. Before the commander could respond, the facility trembled again. The rumble of ships overhead grew louder, and the sound of boots echoed through the halls. The Empire was closing in. The core of the facility glowed brighter, its energy intensifying. And it was clear that the figure knew exactly what was about to happen. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a trap, one set long before Earth's resistance even began to fight back. In that moment, everything clicked. The Empire's real goal was not to conquer Earth, but to use this very power beneath their feet to reshape the galaxy. The core had the ability to amplify any weapon, to bend the laws of physics themselves, giving the Empire a chance to rule everything in the galaxy. The super soldiers had been awakened to stop the Empire, yes, but they were also the key to unlocking this power. They had been part of a long-forgotten project, built with the knowledge of how to control the core. The commander's chest tightened. The super soldiers were more than just enhanced humans. They were the fail-safe, the ones who would either protect or unleash this power, depending on how it was activated. The figure before them had once been a part of this plan, a failed experiment that the Empire had abandoned. But now, they were a living embodiment of the Empire's manipulation, someone who had returned with the knowledge to unlock the core's true potential. "We're all just pieces in a game we can't escape from," the commander muttered, realization washing over them. "We were never meant to win. We were just meant to fight." The figure smiled, a cold and calculating expression. "Exactly. You've played your part, and now the Empire will take control. You can't stop what has already been set into motion." A sharp sound echoed through the room, and the core suddenly surged with energy. The walls vibrated as the facility's systems came to life, a deep mechanical hum that filled every corner. The super soldiers immediately took their positions, weapons drawn, but there was no clear path forward. The time to act had arrived, but what were they fighting for? Their mission had shifted from protecting humanity to deciding its fate. What if the power they sought to destroy was the very thing that could save them? The commander raised a hand, signaling the soldiers to hold their ground. "Wait. We can still stop this." It was then that the final twist hit. A voice, familiar and yet utterly unexpected, echoed through the facility. It was soft at first, a whisper carried by the wind, but it grew louder with each passing second, reverberating through the walls. "You've been manipulated, Commander. You and your soldiers." The voice wasn't from the figure. It wasn't even from the Empire. It was a voice from their past, one they had never anticipated hearing again. The commander's heart skipped a beat as they turned toward the sound, eyes scanning the room in disbelief. Standing in the doorway, illuminated by the pulsating glow of the core, was a familiar figure, one they had thought lost forever. It was one of the original creators of the Super Soldier program, a scientist who had disappeared long ago under mysterious circumstances. Their expression was grim, as if they had seen the future and knew the outcome. "You've been a part of something much larger than you realize," the scientist continued. "The Empire's manipulation is nothing compared to what this core is capable of. It was never about control. It was about evolution." The realization hit the commander hard. The super soldiers, the entire war, the fight for Earth, it had all been leading to this moment. The core wasn't just a weapon. It was a tool for human evolution. The super soldiers had been awakened to safeguard humanity's next step, to guide them into a new age of power. But the Empire had been manipulating them all along, pushing them toward an outcome where they could control the evolution of an entire species. But now, they were faced with a choice. The commander looked between the super soldiers and the mysterious figure. They had a weapon capable of changing the future, but at what cost? Could humanity survive such power, or would it be consumed by it? The commander made the decision that had to be made. They activated the core's override system. The room plunged into darkness as the energy surged one last time, crackling with an intensity that threatened to tear the facility apart. But in that moment of chaos, the Empire's forces arrived, their ships landing with thunderous force. The battle was not over. The fate of Earth and the galaxy was still hanging in the balance. The super soldiers fought with everything they had, their enhanced strength and speed cutting through the Empire's forces, but the core's energy was unstable. It was too powerful for anyone to control without devastating consequences. The commander stood at the center of the chaos, eyes fixed on the core, knowing that their actions would determine the future. As the last of the Empire's soldiers were defeated, they finally made the ultimate choice. They shut down the core, sealing its power once and for all. The facility fell silent. The core's glow dimmed, its energy dissipating into nothingness. The battle was over. Earth had survived, but humanity's future was now uncertain. The super soldiers, the last hope of Earth, had won, but at what cost? The Empire had been stopped, but the real battle had just begun. What did the future hold for a species on the verge of evolution, a species that had been given a glimpse of its true potential? Only time would tell, and for the commander, the answer was still unclear. The final twist, the true power of the super soldiers had been revealed. But what remained was the most uncertain question of all. Was humanity ready for the next step? The echoes of battle still rang in the minds of the warriors, but the tension in the air was shifting. It had been an exhausting journey, both physical and mental, and yet, despite everything, there was one last truth they all had to face. The child's life had been stolen by the hands of the Galactic Empire, and the cost of that loss had been heavier than anyone could have imagined. With the arrival of the super soldiers from Cryo sleep, a new hope had sparked within humanity. These were not mere men and women. They were warriors forged for survival, trained to protect and to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The revival of these soldiers was a testament to humanity's resolve, but even they were not immune to the questions that lingered in the air. Was it enough? Could they truly change the fate of their people? The soldiers now stood on the precipice of their final mission. As they gathered in the dimly lit war room, the gravity of the moment settled in. Their comrades had already ventured deep into enemy territory, and now the task was clear: find the heart of the Galactic Empire's tyranny and destroy it. They were humanity's last hope, and failure was not an option. Their mission was no longer just about revenge. It was about ensuring a future where such atrocities would never happen again. But the path ahead was not without its sacrifices. The battle had claimed many lives, and as they marched forward, some soldiers still bore the marks of those sacrifices. Though their bodies had been brought back from the edge of death, the emotional scars lingered. Yet there was an unspoken bond among them, a shared understanding that this fight wasn't just for them, but for the countless lives who had never been given a choice. As they closed in on the Empire's stronghold, the soldiers were met with fierce resistance. The stakes were higher than ever. With the fate of an entire civilization hanging in the balance, every decision mattered. Every move, every strike had to be calculated, precise. One misstep, and all they had fought for would be lost. But amidst the chaos, a deeper realization began to take root. This battle wasn't only for revenge against the Empire. It was about reclaiming the essence of humanity itself, the compassion, the strength, the resilience that had been silenced for so long. These soldiers were not just a tool for destruction. They were a symbol of what humanity could achieve when united. The Empire, too, began to show cracks. They had underestimated humanity, assuming their empire was unbreakable, their power limitless. But in the face of a relentless fight, they realized that the spark of defiance that humanity carried could not be extinguished. The soldiers, driven by the memory of the child they had lost, struck hard and fast. With each battle, with each victory, they dismantled the Empire's hold on the galaxy. But in the midst of their victory, a final, unexpected twist arose. The leaders of the Galactic Empire, having anticipated a possible rebellion, had developed a new weapon, one that could annihilate entire fleets with the press of a button. It was a last-ditch effort to quell the rebellion and reassert control. The soldiers now had to make an impossible choice. The weapon's activation was imminent, and there was no way to stop it from within their grasp. They could either sacrifice their own lives in a final push to disable the weapon, or they could retreat and regroup, but risk everything they had gained. Time was running out. The decision was made. Without hesitation, the super soldiers infiltrated the heart of the Empire's final defense system. Their mission was clear: sabotage the weapon or die trying. The stakes couldn't have been higher, but their determination was unwavering. As they breached the final chamber, they were met with a shocking truth. The weapon wasn't just a tool of destruction, it was a prison. The child's life, taken by the Empire, was not an isolated incident. Countless others had been sacrificed for the Empire's twisted experiments. The child, whose death had sparked the soldiers' revival, had been part of an ongoing, unspeakable program, a program designed to eliminate those who stood in defiance of the Empire. The weapon, it turned out, was their way of consolidating their power over the entire galaxy, keeping the resistance at bay through fear. But the soldiers didn't falter. The anger that had fueled them for so long now transformed into something more powerful: resolve. They knew that destroying the weapon was no longer enough. They had to expose the truth to the galaxy and ensure that the Empire's reign was brought to an end once and for all. In a final, heroic act, the soldiers managed to destroy the weapon, sacrificing themselves in the process. But their legacy lived on. Their actions ignited a fire of rebellion across the galaxy as other factions rose to join the fight. Their sacrifice was the catalyst for a new era, one where the Empire could no longer control the stars. And as the soldiers vanished into the depths of history, their names were remembered, not as mere weapons of war, but as the saviors of humanity. They had given everything not just for vengeance, but for the promise of a better future, where the voices of the oppressed would be heard. As the dust settled and the remnants of the Galactic Empire lay in ruins, the galaxy stood on the precipice of a new beginning. The survivors of the rebellion, now united, rebuilt a world where justice, compassion, and unity were the cornerstones. And in their hearts, they carried the memory of those who had fought and died to make that future possible. The journey of the super soldiers had come to an end, but the story of humanity's strength, courage, and unyielding hope would live on forever.